Good evening. Good evening. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. So, thank you. Good evening. So, Congressman John Lewis, before his passing, wrote, "Democracy is not a state, it is an act." And what he meant was that America's democracy is not guaranteed. It is only as strong as our willingness to fight for it. To guard it and never take it for granted. And protecting our democracy takes struggle, it takes sacrifice, but there is joy in it, and there is progress, because we, the people, have the power to build a better future. And when our very democracy was on the ballot in this election, with the very soul of America at stake, and the world watching, you ushered in a new day for America. To our campaign staff and volunteers, this extraordinary team, thank you for bringing more people than ever before into the democratic process. And for making this victory possible. To the poll workers and election officials across our country who have worked tirelessly to make sure every vote is counted, our nation owes you a debt of gratitude. You have protected the integrity of our democracy. And to the American people who make up our beautiful country, thank you for turning out in record numbers to make your voices heard. And I know times have been challenging, especially the last several months. The grief, sorrow, and pain, the worries and the struggles. But we have also witnessed your courage, your resilience, and the generosity of your spirit. For 4 years, you marched and organized for equality and justice, for our lives and for our planet. And then you voted. And you delivered a clear message. You chose hope and unity, decency, science, and yes, truth. You chose Joe Biden as the next president of the United States of America. And Joe is a healer, a uniter, a tested and steady hand, a person whose own experience of loss gives him a sense of purpose that will help us as a nation reclaim our own sense of purpose. And a man with a big heart who loves with abandon. It's his love for Jill, who will be an incredible First Lady. It's his love for Hunter and Ashley and his grandchildren and the entire Biden family. And while I first knew Joe as vice president, I really got to know him as the father who loved Beau, my dear friend who we remember here today. and to my husband, Doug, and our children, Cole and Ella, and my sister, Maya, and our whole family. I love you all more than I can ever express. We are so grateful to Joe and Jill for welcoming our family into theirs on this incredible journey. And to the woman most responsible for my presence here today, my mother, Kamala Harris, who is always in our hearts. When she came here from India at the age of 19, she maybe didn't quite imagine this moment, but she believed so deeply in an America where a moment like this is possible. And so I am thinking about her and about the generations of women, Black women, Asian, white, Latina, Native American women, who throughout our nation's history have paved the way for this moment tonight. Women who fought and sacrificed so much for equality and liberty and justice for all, including the Black women who are often, too often, overlooked, but so often prove they are the backbone of our democracy. All the women who have worked to secure and protect the right to vote for over a century, 100 years ago with the 19th Amendment, 55 years ago with the Voting Rights Act, and now in 2020 with a new generation of women in our country who cast their ballots and continued the fight for their fundamental right to vote and be heard. Tonight I reflect on their struggle, their determination, and the strength of their vision to see what can be unburdened by what has been. And I stand on their shoulders. And what a testament it is to Joe's character that he had the audacity to break one of the most substantial barriers that exists in our country and select a woman as his vice president. But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last. Because every little girl watching tonight sees that this is a country of possibilities. And to the children of our country, regardless of your gender, our country has sent you a clear message. Dream with ambition, lead with conviction, and see yourselves in a way that others may not, simply because they've never seen it before. But know that we will applaud you every step of the way. And to the American people, no matter who you voted for, I will strive to be a vice president, like Joe was to President Obama, loyal, honest, and prepared, waking up every day thinking of you and your family. Because now is when the real work begins, the hard work, the necessary work, the good work, the essential work to save lives and beat this epidemic, to rebuild our economy so it works for working people, to root out systemic racism in our justice system and society, to combat the climate crisis, to unite our country and heal the soul of our nation. And the road ahead will not be easy, but America is ready. And so are Joe and I. We have elected a president who represents the best in us, a leader the world will respect and our children will look up to, a commander-in-chief who will respect our troops and keep our country safe, and a president for all Americans. And it is now my great honor to introduce the President-elect of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
Hello, my fellow Americans, and the people who brought me to the dance, Delawareans. I see my buddy Senator Tom Carper down there, and I think Senator Coons is there, and I think the governor's around. Is that Ruth Ann? And that former Governor Ruth Ann Minner. Most importantly, my sisters-in-law and my sister Valerie. Anyway. Folks, the people of this nation have spoken. They've delivered us a clear victory, a convincing victory, a victory for we the people. We've won with the most votes ever cast on a presidential ticket in the history of the nation. 74 million. What I must admit has surprised me. Tonight, we're seeing all over this nation, all cities and all parts of the country, indeed across the world, an outpouring of joy, of hope, renewed faith in tomorrow, bring a better day. And I'm humbled by the trust and confidence you've placed in me. I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify, who doesn't see red states and blue states, only sees the United States, and work with all my heart, with the confidence of the whole people, to win the confidence of all of you. And for that is what America, I believe, is about. It's about people, and that's what our administration will be all about. I sought this office to restore the soul of America, to rebuild the backbone of this nation, the middle class, and to make America respected around the world again, and to unite us here at home. It's the honor of my lifetime that so many millions of Americans have voted for that vision. And now, the work of making that vision is real. It's a task, the task of our time. Folks, as I said many times before, I'm Jill's husband. And I would not be here without her love and tireless support of Jill, and my son Hunter, and Ashley, my daughter, and all our grandchildren, and their spouses, and all our family. They're my heart. Jill's a mom, a military mom, an educator, and she has dedicated her life to education. But teaching isn't just what she does, It's who she is. For American educators, this is a great day for y'all. You're going to have one of your own in the White House. And Jill's going to make a great First Lady. I'm so proud of her. And I'll have the honor of serving with the fantastic Vice President who you just heard from, Kamala Harris, who makes history as the first woman, first black woman, the first woman from South Asian descent, the first daughter of an immigrant ever elected in this country. Don't tell me it's not possible in the United States. It's long overdue. And we're reminded tonight of those who fought so hard for so many years to make this happen. But once again, America's bent the arc of the moral universe more toward justice. Kamala, Doug, like it or not, your family, you become an honorary Biden, there's no way out. All those of you who volunteered and worked the polls in the middle of this pandemic, local elected officials, you deserve a special thanks from the entire nation. And to my campaign team and all the volunteers and all who gave so much of themselves to make this moment possible, I owe you. I owe you. I owe you everything. And to all those who supported us, I'm proud of the campaign we built and ran. I'm proud of the coalition we put together, the broadest and most diverse coalition in history. Democrats, Republicans, independents, progressives, moderates, conservatives, young, old, urban, suburban, rural, gay, straight, transgender, white, Latino, Asian, Native American. I mean it, especially for those moments, and especially for those moments when this campaign was at its lowest ebb. The African-American community stood up again for me. You've always had my back, and I'll have yours. I said at the outset, I wanted to represent this campaign to represent and look like America. We've done that. Now that's what I want the administration to look like and act like. For all those of you who voted for President Trump, I understand the disappointment tonight. I've lost a couple times myself. But now, let's give each other a chance. It's time to put away the harsh rhetoric, lower the temperature, see each other again, listen to each other again. And to make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as our enemies. They are not our enemies. They are Americans. They're Americans. The Bible tells us, to everything there is a season, a time to build, a time to reap and a time to sow, and a time to heal. This is the time to heal in America. Now this campaign is over. What is the will of the people? What is our mandate? I believe it's this. Americans have called upon us to marshal the forces of decency, the forces of fairness, to marshal the forces of science and the forces of hope in the great battles of our time. The battle to control the virus, the battle to build prosperity, the battle to secure your family's health care, the battle to achieve racial justice and root out systemic racism in this country, and the battle to save our planet by getting climate under control, the battle to restore decency, defend democracy, and give everybody in this country a fair shot. That's all they're asking for, a fair shot. Folks, our work begins with getting COVID under control. We cannot repair the economy, restore our vitality, or relish life's most precious moments, hugging our grandchildren, our children, our birthdays, weddings, graduations, all the moments that matter most to us until we get it under control. On Monday, I will name a group of leading scientists and experts as transition advisors to help take the Biden-Harris COVID plan and convert it into an action blueprint that will start on January the 20th, 2021. That plan will be built on bedrock science. It will be constructed out of compassion, empathy, and concern. I will spare no effort, none, or any commitment to turn around this pandemic. Folks, I'm a proud Democrat, but I will govern as an American president. I'll work as hard for those who didn't vote for me as those who did. Let this grim era of demonization in America begin to end here and now. The refusal of Democrats and Republicans to cooperate with one another, it's not some mysterious force beyond our control. It's a decision, a choice we make. And if we can decide not to cooperate, then we can decide to cooperate. And I believe that this is part of the mandate given to us from the American people. They want us to cooperate in their interest. And that's the choice I'll make. And I'll call on Congress, Democrats and Republicans alike, to make that choice with me. The American story is about slow yet steadily widening the opportunities in America. And make no mistake, too many dreams have been deferred for too long. We must make the promise of the country real for everybody, no matter their race, their ethnicity, their faith, their identity, or their disability. Folks, America has always been shaped by inflection points, by moments in time where we've made hard decisions about who we are and what we want to be. Lincoln in 1860, coming to save the Union. FDR in 1932, promising a beleaguered country a new deal. JFK in 1960, pledging a new frontier. And 12 years ago, when Barack Obama made history, he told us, yes, we can. Well, folks, we stand at an inflection point. We have an opportunity to defeat despair, to build a nation of prosperity and purpose. We can do it. I know we can. I've long talked about the battle for the soul of America. We must restore the soul of America. Our nation is shaped by the constant battle between our better angels and our darkest impulses. And what presidents say in this battle matters. It's time for our better angels to prevail. Tonight, the whole world is watching America. And I believe at our best, America is a beacon for the globe. We will lead not only by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. I've always believed, many of you heard me say it, I've always believed we can define America in one word: possibilities. That in America, everyone should be given an opportunity to go as far as their dreams and God-given ability will take them. You see, I believe in the possibilities of this country. We're always looking ahead to an America that's freer and more just, ahead to an America that creates jobs with dignity and respect, ahead of America that cures diseases like cancer and Alzheimer's, ahead to an America that never leaves anyone behind, ahead of America that never gives up, never gives in. This is a great nation. It's always been a bad bet to bet against America. We're good people. This is the United States of America, and there's never been anything we've been not able to do when we've done it together. Folks, in the last days of the campaign, I began thinking about a hymn that means a lot to me and my family, particularly my deceased son, Bo. It captures the faith that sustains me and which I believe sustains America. And I hope it can provide some comfort and solace to 230,000 Americans who've lost a loved one to this terrible virus this year. My heart goes out to each and every one of you. Hopefully this hymn gives you solace as well. And it goes like this. And he will raise you up on eagle's wings, bear you on the breath of dawn, and make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. And now together, on eagle's wings, we embark on the work that God and history have called upon us to do, with full hearts and steady hands, with faith in America and in each other, with love of country, a thirst for justice. Let us be the nation that we know we can be, a nation united, a nation strengthened, a nation healed. The United States of America, ladies and gentlemen, there's never been anything we've tried we've not been able to do. So remember, as our grandpapa used to say when I walked out of his home when I was a kid up in Scranton, he said, "Joey, keep the faith." And our grandmother, when she was alive, she yelled, "No, Joey, spread it." Spread the faith. God love you all. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And there you see the family of President-elect Joe Biden, his large family, along with the family of Kamala Harris, the Vice President-elect, all gathered there on the stage celebrating with fireworks after what has been a week-long election, after Election Day, waiting for the answer from many of these states. And Joe Biden giving what might be one of the best speeches of his lifetime, encapsulating the moment, I think, in the words, "This is a time to heal in America." And I think he's speaking literally about the coronavirus, saying that that will be his first act, but also politically speaking as well about healing the deep divisions in this country that exist.
Saying your opponents are not your enemies. We are all Americans. Let's give each other a chance and lower the temperature. I already like the tone he's setting, John, already. He's setting the tone.
And just adding the see each other again, listen to each other again. So that's the, you know, it's not just words, but actually putting them into action. The speech really ranged. You had Langston Hughes reference in there on eagle's wings. He quoted Minister Theodore Parker with the bending of the moral universe, which Barack Obama used quite often, certainly Martin Luther King. It was again, this is what speech making sounds like, and President Trump just hasn't spoken like this, hasn't chosen to, and this was a speech, you know, that seeks to use the words in the moment to bring the nation together and move it along. Words can't do everything in a presidency, but they can do a lot.
And to say that he wants to root out systemic racism. Do you know how long people have been waiting for someone in that position to say that, to acknowledge, A, that it exists, and then to acknowledge we want to do something about it?
That it will
That's
be
very powerful.
That it will be a priority.
Exactly, exactly, Nora, and a priority.
Said to the Black community, you had my back and I had yours.
The significance, too, of Joe Biden speaking of his loss, not only with his first wife, who was killed in a car accident, as well as his son, who died of glioblastoma, cancer, which many Americans know, the pain of losing someone from cancer, and then referencing that Catholic hymn, and he will raise you up on eagle's wings. Joe Biden becomes the only second Catholic to ever be elected president of the United States since John F. Kennedy. And so there is a resonance here as well.
And we'll have a church-going president again. Not since George W. Bush, really, have we had somebody who went to church on Sundays with regularity. We should probably reflect on the sort of modern family-looking group of people up there on stage. We saw Biden's son, Hunter, who we have not seen in public at all over the course of this campaign, who's there.
Holding his new grandchild.
Hunter, yes.
Well, no, the president-elect is holding his.
Yes, and then he has now a total of 7 grandchildren. Natalie, Robert, Maisie, Finnegan, Naomi, another child that was born to another woman with Hunter, and then the youngest there with his new wife, Melissa. Kamala Harris, those young children, one of them is Amara, her niece. There was a video shot, actually her grandniece. Her niece shot video of them talking the other day about how that 4-year-old could one day become president.
She was sitting on her lap.
It was
a very cute video.
Yes.
Yeah, people should look at that.
And Kamala Harris mentioned her stepchildren, Cole and Ella, who are Doug Emhoff's children. And the senator, or the vice president-elect's actually very good friends with Emhoff's former wife. They're all friendly back in Los Angeles. So these are faces and names we'll get to know over the next few years as they take office.
I mean, you know, when you talk about, filling your cabinet with people that look like America, that's what that stage looks like right now. Look at the range of color, the range of age, male, female. It really is a beautiful sight to see them all there together. And I love when he said to Kamala Harris, "You're now a Biden, like it or not. You're now a Biden for life, like it or not."
You get the feeling he would want to deputize the whole country into that, given what he really wants to do.
Embrace us, yeah.
Well, you know, there is something that always strikes me about Joe Biden, given that he has had 47 years in public life and has been busy, is that he calls his children every single day. He calls most of his grandchildren every single day.
Just to say hey?
Just to say hey.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
I know you text with your kids every day and send pictures and stuff
I like
too.
that.
But
Those of us with teenagers don't get a response.
exactly.
temporary, John. It's temporary.
There's something unique about really that diligence with which he loves and cares for his family. And it was really something actually that you heard now Vice President-elect Harris mention in her remarks about the decency that embodies Joe Biden. It's a word he used too, to marshal the forces of decency. They both had similar words that they used: decency, truth, healer, uniter. That is
science.
Yeah.
They both emphasize science, which I thought was interesting. A big nod to COVID.
It was a speech that was very true to Joe Biden.
Yes.
The reason it sounded so natural is because these are themes that he has sounded throughout his political career, including 36 years on Capitol Hill. He was always someone who was trying to make a deal, trying to reach out to the other side. In fact, some Democrats were frustrated with him when he was vice president because they felt he was too eager to reach out to the other side and make a deal. I was just reading a quote from a Republican in Congress from a few years ago who said, "I don't always agree with him, but I do trust him implicitly. He doesn't break his word. He doesn't waste time telling me why I'm wrong. He gets down to brass tacks and keeps sight of the stakes." You know who said that?
Who?
Mitch McConnell.
Oh, win, Nancy,
It's
win.
in the long game. Yeah.
Yeah. In the book.
I was going to say, John, how did you know that?
He knows
You know that John
He reads
Dickerson.
everything.
I said
John
encyclopedic
Dickerson.
mind again. Here's another first in the Biden White House. Biden's dog Major will be the first shelter pup to live in the White House. I don't know what kind of dog Major is. John Dickerson, what kind of dog is Major?
I know, he's a German Shepherd. The Bidens have always had German Shepherds.
They have?
Yes.
Okay.
And so,
By the way, I was keeping count. He said folks 7 times.
But no
was
malarkey.
No malarkey
Malarkey
tonight.
once.
That's right.
He threw a y'all in there as well.
you know, I found the phrase that I was looking for, Vice President-elect's phrase about Joe Biden. She said he is a man with a big heart who loves without abandon.
Yes.
And he certainly has done that with his family and through his career as a public servant. And that will be his task, is to love with abandon those who disagree with him vehemently, and the direction that perhaps he wants to take the country, and feel sort of stuck in their ways about what they believe, and the distrust that has really come to embody our politics, that you can, for some reason it's extended beyond what you believe, that you can't trust the other person.
It's interesting that we're sitting here at Times Square. You can hear the roar of the crowd as we're sitting in the building. You could hear the applause. The car horns have gotten louder now that it's over. I mean, you feel it's a big celebration right outside of our walls. Mm-hmm. I like, too, that he mentioned again he will work just as hard for those who didn't work for me. I will work just as hard for you. Again, he keeps extending that branch to say, I'm here for you and want to work with you. I think that's a very important message to send. And you can't say it enough. You can't say it enough, because we are deeply divided as we sit here tonight as a nation.
And of course, saying it isn't enough,
Yes,
which is to
you're
say, you know, but I think behind these words, whether it actually works out this way in his presidency or not, behind them is the struggle to at least get caught trying to reach out. And that's, you know, anybody can put words on a page, but he really, and in fact was penalized by this in the Democratic primaries for this idea that you have to reach out to get anything done. And sometimes have to reach out and work with people you might not think are the most swell people in the world, but that's the way you make progress.
But I say again, John, just the fact that he chose Kamala Harris, we talked about this afternoon, after he felt slighted by her during the debate. He was clearly very irritated, felt that, you know, many people thought that it was a low blow. But you could see that he got past that because he chose what he felt was best for him and what was best for the country. I think that speaks volumes about who he is as a person. There are many people that would not be able to get past that, but he did.
And there's no one who understands better how important having that rapport with your running mate is, because he did that for 8 years for President Obama, who also extended the olive branch many times. You know, remember the beer summit, you know, kept trying to go back to Capitol Hill, but actually got rather disillusioned towards the end of his presidency and didn't feel like he was getting the same goodwill and response. He said it was like, you know, you're digging the ditch and you've got, you know, the rest of the construction crew standing there at the edge saying, dig more, instead of jumping in to help. And
Well,
so,
he has a new book coming out in a couple weeks. We can hear more about that. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, this is
To see
Barack
if we can
Obama's
get- yeah,
book.
Barack Obama's book, to see if we can get the inside scoop. But
There you see Times Square and the celebration as thousands have gathered at what's called the crossroads of the world to mark this moment. It's as if
those are live pictures right now.
That's right.
That's happening right now.
it's as if in some ways the pandemic has ended, which it has not, but people feel that sense of that they want to rush to the scene of where other people are to join in the celebration of the election of the 46th President of the United States. And I think there's not only a sense of excitement about that, but I also think, Kamala Harris said that the audacity of Joe Biden to choose a woman. But I think there was also something pragmatic about that as well. I mean, not just the audacity of it. I think that the president-elect has been surrounded by strong women, including his sister.
And I remember, I believe, there's a congresswoman from Delaware, Lisa Blunt Rochester, who told our Bo Erickson vice presidential selection process that at the beginning, before he even ran, he told her he would likely pick a woman as his running mate because he understood that it was time for that threshold to be crossed. So it was always in the back of his mind. He surprised everyone in March, right as the pandemic was beginning, in his final primary debate with Bernie Sanders by announcing that he would do it, and immediately faced pressure to pick a woman of color, and understanding that there was an opportunity given that Kamala Harris was in the race.
And what was going on in the country at the time,
right.
too.
He, in the process, elevated several women of color in his party who are now household names, at least to those who watch a lot of TV news. Keisha Lance Bottoms of Atlanta, Val Demings of Florida, people who were not well known, but he helped elevate. And that is part of what his administration plans to do, is to put people in positions. He has said it, but he means it, and his aides tell us he means it. He will put people in positions of power that have not been in those kinds of positions before, because he wants the country to understand and accept that people like that can be working in government.
And I thought he was actually very explicit about that right at the start of his speech tonight, saying the African American community has always had my back, and now it's my turn to have yours. It's a real recognition, some would say an overdue recognition, that African Americans and African American women in particular have delivered victories for Democrats time and time again, and perhaps have not gotten the recognition and the respect that they deserved for that reliability.
Since 1976, 80% of African American women have voted for the Democratic presidential candidate every time. No other block of voters has been that loyal to a Democratic presidential candidate each time. He understood that.
And certainly propelled his victory not only in the primary, but also backed him in the general election as well. We want to bring in Senator Chris Coons, a close friend of the new president-elect. He holds the Senate seat that Joe Biden once held. Good evening, Senator Coons, and thank you so much for joining us, especially on this momentous occasion. And I guess, have the fireworks already stopped?
Nora, it's been an amazing evening. I think Joe gave a powerful, a moving speech. And to see Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on this stage behind me just a few moments ago brought tears to many eyes here in Wilmington, Delaware, and hope to many hearts all across our nation.
I know you've spoken with him. Just how ambitious is his agenda even before he moves into the White House?
Well, as you know, bringing our country together in this moment of deep division, getting us out of this pandemic, rebuilding our economy so it's more just and sustainable, and restoring our place in the world. That's a fairly ambitious agenda. That's what Joe's been running on since he announced in April of last year, and I think he is exactly the right leader to deliver on that ambitious agenda for our nation this coming year.
And have you been able to speak with him today? Do you know if he's going to reach out to President Trump, or is he waiting first to hear from him? What's your sense of that?
I don't know whether he will reach out first, but as you heard in his speech tonight, and as you've heard from him all along the campaign trail, Joe is someone who believes deeply in healing the divisions in this country, in bringing us together. So I expect that he'll be reaching out in a variety of ways to Republican leaders, to Americans of all backgrounds and political persuasions.
Senator Coons, it's John Dickerson here. You have a lot of relationships with Republicans that you've intended for in a variety of different ways. Have you heard from any Republicans? There's been not much well-wishing of the president-elect. Have you heard from any Republicans privately or otherwise about their feelings?
Absolutely. I've spoken to about a dozen of my colleagues, some by text, most by phone in recent days. Initially, a number of us were calling each other to offer congratulations on being reelected or condolences on being unsuccessful. And in talking to Democratic and Republican senators alike, there's a passion for moving forward, for getting things done in Congress, for responding to the real needs of our constituents. This has been one of the most divisive elections of my lifetime, and recent years in the Senate has been profoundly unsatisfying to senators of both parties because we know we haven't addressed the needs of middle America. So I'm optimistic that the senators who've served with Joe for many years, who've known him as a senator and vice president, know his character, know his heart, and are going to be willing to risk working across the aisle with a Biden administration, a Biden-Harris administration.
Senator, do you think they will risk reaching across the aisle now to hasten this moment of unity that you're talking about by saying something congratulating the president-elect?
I hope so. Look, I've been disappointed many times in the ways in which my colleagues have not stood up to President Trump, those who privately have expressed grave concern about things he's done that have been unconventional or have violated some of the important traditions of our nation. This is a moment for all of us to come together to support the president-elect and the vice president-elect, but more importantly, to support the American people. You heard in Joe's remarks tonight that his hope, his ambition is to lead as an American president, not a Democratic president. And we have an opportunity to do that now. And I'm hopeful my colleagues of all backgrounds, Democrat, Independent, and Republican in the Senate will come forward and do that.
Senator Coons, I agree with you. It's Gayle King speaking when you said you think it's one of the best speeches he's ever given. There were so many highlights, if you will, but as someone who has known him for such a long time, can you share with us what this moment means to him? It's true when they say third time's the charm, it seems, for your friend tonight.
But Gayle, as you know, this is the moment that Joe Biden was made for. This was the moment that all the ups and downs of his life, the tragedies and losses, the successes and the soaring accomplishments, all of it came together in this election, in this moment. We're in the middle of a terrible pandemic where more than 100,000 Americans have been infected each of the last 3 days. We need a president who's compassionate, who can reach across the aisle, who can listen to science, and who can get us out of our current challenges. Joe has run twice before, but this is the moment that he was built for because of his optimism, his deep belief in the American people. You heard his message tonight of confidence that we can do things together to hit in this challenging time in our nation. And Kamala Harris is just the right person to lead alongside him as vice president.
I don't know if you've had a chance to look at your TV this afternoon, but I described it as a nationwide block party. You can really see the exuberance and the bliss of people in the streets. What does that say to you? Of course, the Trump supporters are not happy tonight. We understand that, too, and acknowledge the power that Donald Trump has among the people who supported him. But what does it say to you when you look at the people celebrating in the streets the way they are in this country tonight?
Well, I think the joy that I heard here in Delaware wasn't just for Republicans or Democrats. It was really about our democracy working and moving forward. The last 4 days have been long, and people have been patient. And 150 million Americans, roughly, came out to vote in this election. And think about it. The ways in which we have shown as a nation our confidence in our system, in our democracy, and the ways in which the elation, the jubilation, the dancing in the streets that you're talking about, Gayle, that's an expression of joyfulness and of hopefulness about what is possible with the leadership of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and with the willingness to work together.
Senator Coons, it's Nancy Cordes. Good to see you. You talked a minute ago about the need to restore the nation's place in the world. Well, you've been mentioned several times as someone who might be on the president-elect's shortlist for Secretary of State.
Yes.
So is that a position you'd be interested in? What qualities would you like to see in the next Secretary of State?
Well, Nancy, as you know, I've worked hard in the last decade to bridge the differences in the Senate. And I think Joe is perfectly positioned to be the person to help bridge some of the real challenges in the world. The best way that we can be a successful nation on the world stage is to heal our democracy here at home. And whether Joe asks me to be a part of that work in the Senate or in another way as a part of his administration, I'd be honored to do so. He has a number of very talented people right around him who've served with him many years from whom he could choose. But if I got that opportunity, it'd be the honor of a lifetime.
All right,
No.
Senator Coons, thank you so much for joining us as we wrap up there from Wilmington, Delaware, just as we heard the president-elect saying that he pledges to be an American who will seek not to divide, but to unify. There's a lot more ahead. We'll check in with our correspondents at the celebrations around the country as we continue our coverage of the election of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris right here on CBS News.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
COVID has taken the lives of tens of thousands of Americans. Rural areas like this here on Navajo Nation are especially hit hard.
15 to 30% of our Navajo citizens don't have running water.
In any indigenous reservation, there is a shortage of physicians.
Native Americans are amongst the most vulnerable and hardest hit by COVID.
Yeah, the more we lose our elders to COVID-19, the more we lose our language and our way of life.
We need to bring awareness to the attention of Washington, D.C. and United States citizens that there is a need to focus on the first citizens of this country.
In 60 years, we went from about 100,000 factory workers to probably about 7,000.
Off in the distance, you can see some factories that are still humming, but most of them are just kind of abandoned.
The restaurant industry right now is one of the largest and fastest growing industries in America. And yet it continues to be the absolute lowest paying employer in the United States.
Barely anybody's making enough to live.
You were donating plasma to get by.
It's literally a slave wage.
I don't remember growing up like this. My mom didn't have to go to food banks. It's pretty sad.
Even really young kids are feeling what's going on right now. How should parents be talking to them about this whole question of racial justice?
How do we embrace this moment and turn it into real change?
What we really must focus on is moving from protesting to policy.
Join Gail, Anthony, and Tony on CBS This Morning.
CBSN Los Angeles. Get local news, breaking news, anytime, anywhere.
It's easy to find us, and it's free.
Download the CBS News app on your favorite devices. CBSN Los Angeles, streaming 24/7.
You can watch CBSN 24/7.
We've got an amazing story to share with you.
I understand you have some breaking news.
How does it all play out?
It's quite an adventure here at CBSN.
It's been a day.
For all those of you who voted for President Trump, I understand the disappointment tonight. I've lost a couple times myself, but now let's give each other a chance. It's time to put away the harsh rhetoric, lower the temperature, see each other again, listen to each other again. And to make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as our enemies. They are not our enemies. They are Americans. They're Americans.
And there you have the president-elect, Joe Biden, saying that let this grim era of demonization in America begin to end. It is time to heal. Really a remarkable way to encapsulate a change that he is trying to usher in after the 4 years of Donald Trump as president of the United States.
I still like the line, let's give each other a chance, lower the temperature. And also, him also reaching out to world leaders saying, we're lead not with the example of our power, but the power of our example. I also think he's also sending something to world leaders who, the mayor of Paris sent a tweet today that said, welcome back, America. Welcome back.
Yes, it was striking to see how quickly the foreign leaders responded to the election call. I mean, they called it faster than some news organizations did in their rushing to congratulate the president-elect.
It is true. We heard from the French president. We heard from Germany's president.
Boris Johnson.
The Canadian prime ministers all quickly, even while President Trump has not conceded, they congratulating the next president of the United States, Joe Biden. And many of them know him.
Well,
and that is really, one of the things you have to remember is that before Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, he was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I think as he's pointed out in the debates, he's met more times with President Xi of China than just about anybody else. He's been around the world. World leaders know him. He does have a sense of reputation around the world because he's traveled the world so much. He could be a Secretary of State.
It'll be really interesting to see if he does. George Herbert Walker Bush did a lot of the personal work and relationship building with other leaders all the time on the phone, the notes, the whole thing. Joe Biden will undoubtedly do that with world leaders, and then he'll also probably do it with the Senate, too, because he's about the creature of the Senate, and he knows the only way he can get things done is through relationships. So you will see Donald Trump does not do a lot of relationship work with those he doesn't want to. President Obama wasn't excited about doing it all the time. Here you've got a president in the old style who will spend a lot of time trying to do the relationship stuff.
I just thought it was kind of ironic that Justin Trudeau of Canada very quickly posted an Instagram photo of the two of them. It's one thing to congratulate him in a statement. It's another to show the rest of the world, hey, I've got my photo with him already. You don't. So, and there's a lot of that going on because they want to be close with the next American president, having not had a relationship with this country, really, of any real meaning for the last 4 years.
It makes me think of politicians. They're just like us.
Oh, totally. That's the way I
know him
interpret it.
too. Yeah.
I also thought that one of the most interesting things that the first order of business, you said earlier that they had promised to do many things on their first day in office, and as you noted, it's difficult for any of them to really get any of those achieved. But even before he enters office, he's going to be announcing on Monday this team specifically designed to address and provide leadership in this vacuum of leadership on just how to deal with the coronavirus crisis. It's hard to believe that 10 months later, we're actually in a worse position than we were when this whole thing started or when New York was in the grips of this terrible virus.
And I'm interested to see how much he and or his task force will speak up and talk and basically take the place of the silences that have existed from the current administration. And by the way, it's not just handling the coronavirus as it exists, but there's a whole long, complicated set of steps to get the vaccine into the population, if that happens, that he will undoubtedly be tasking people to work with, too, because that's something he'll have to deal with.
I'm excited about that, Nora, but the other thing that stuck out to me that he said on day one, he's going to work on reuniting those children, those 545 children who are separated from their parents. I mean, every time I think about that, I am embarrassed and ashamed about that. Can you imagine if that had happened to any American child, that you were separated, even though, listen, some people would say, well, they shouldn't have come here illegally. I hear all of that. But there had to be a better way to handle that than to separate those kids and have no way of keeping track to reunite them with their parents. I think that's disgraceful.
You know, I was talking to a nonpartisan transition official today who said president-elects send a signal with their early appointments. They send a signal about what policies they want to pursue the earliest. So, for example, President Obama named his economic team first because we were in the middle of a financial meltdown. President Bush, before him, named his foreign policy team first. And so I wouldn't be surprised in this case because Vice President Biden, the president-elect, has made it clear that he wants attacking the coronavirus to be his top priority. You know, not only has he already named who's going to be on his COVID task force, but he could name his Health and Human Services secretary, and just to show how serious he is about this issue.
Nancy's done some incredible reporting today, which she shared with us earlier, and you could share with everyone about when Barack Obama was elected president, how quickly he named a chief of staff.
He named his chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, the next day. And I'm told that we should expect the president-elect to name his chief of staff next week.
What does that say, Nancy, when you name your chief of staff so quickly? What does that
It's
mean?
customary to name your chief of staff because obviously that is your right-hand man. That is the person who is going to help you implement everything. They are going to run your entire operation. And so you name that person first, set the tone, and then you go from there. So, John,
it's only ever been men. You said right-hand man. It's only ever been men in that position.
And it's likely to be a man again because the name that is most commonly mentioned is Ron Klain, who is his former chief of staff when he was vice president, was also chief of staff to Al Gore.
And unlike the current administration where you have people coming in as chief of staff who've never, in some cases, been in a White House, these Ron Klain and the staffers around Biden have in some cases been with him for 30, 40 years.
And Ron Klain also has experience dealing with a pandemic, which is another reason that with pandemic preparedness, another reason why he would be very valuable in that position.
Well, any leader is judged by the people around them.
Right.
And certainly Donald Trump's test for those who he chose to be leaders around him was a loyalty test for the most part, right? It was in many ways sort of a cult of personality, if you will, in the Trump White House. Barack Obama chose Rahm Emanuel because he wanted a tough guy.
Yeah.
And Rahm Emanuel is known as a tough guy, and he wanted to make sure to push very toughly with Congress to get his agenda done, and that's why he chose someone like Rahm.
You mentioned the important building a team. Mike Bloomberg, when he was mayor, said, what did I do in my first 100 days? I built a team. Right. He said nobody ever understood that, but you have to build your team to do any of that long to-do list, and Joe Biden, as somebody who's worked in Washington a long time, has worked with staff, understands that.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more from President-elect Joe Biden's speech and his running mate, Kamala Harris, making history tonight. We'll also go to the board as there are still several undecided states that have not yet been called. When we come back, America Decides.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun. But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
COVID has taken the lives of tens of thousands of Americans. Rural areas like this here on Navajo Nation are especially hit hard.
15 to 30% of our Navajo citizens don't have running water.
In any indigenous reservation, there is a shortage of physicians.
Native Americans are amongst the most vulnerable and hardest hit by COVID.
Yeah, the more we lose our elders to COVID-19, the more we lose our language and our way of life.
We need to bring awareness to the attention of Washington, D.C. and United States citizens that there is a need to focus on the first citizens of this country.
In 60 years, we went from about 100,000 factory workers to probably about 7,000.
Off in the distance, you can see some factories that are still humming, but most of them are just kind of abandoned.
The restaurant industry right now is one of the largest and fastest growing industries in America. And yet it continues to be the absolute lowest paying employer in the United States.
Barely anybody's making enough to live.
You were donating plasma to get by.
It's literally a slave wage.
I don't remember growing up like this. My mom didn't have to go to food banks. It's pretty sad.
Even really young kids are feeling what's going on right now. How should parents be talking to them about this whole question of racial justice?
How do we embrace this moment and turn it into real change?
What we really must focus on is moving from protesting to policy.
Join Gail, Anthony, and Tony on CBS This Morning.
CBSN Los Angeles. Get local news, breaking news, anytime, anywhere.
It's easy to find us, and it's free.
Download the CBS News app on your favorite devices. CBSN Los Angeles, streaming 24/7.
You can watch CBSN 24/7.
We've got an amazing story to share with you.
I understand you have some breaking news.
How does it all play out?
It's quite an adventure here at CBSN.
It's been a day.
And take a look at the celebrations across America. This is Times Square, where CBS's David Begnaud is just outside of our studio. Good evening, David.
Good evening, Nora. You see that? Biden and Harris, the big banner is right underneath the ball where it drops every New Year's Eve. Nora, I want you to know that the loudest applause we heard during Joe Biden's speech was when he announced that he was going to form a COVID task force. And the people couldn't hear him. They were literally reading his words and the closed captioning on the screen, reading his lips, and they erupted in applause. Want to give you some reaction? This is Susan. Susan, what's your reaction? How do you feel a Biden administration will be?
I think it's going to be wonderful. I lived in Asia, in Korea, and Japan for 23 years, and I came back to a Trump administration. And I was so disappointed and unhappy. And now I feel that it's all going to be okay.
Thank you, Miss Susan. These gentlemen are actually from the UK and France. What did you guys think of the moment when Biden spoke and everybody was celebratory?
I've been there all day, and it puts United into the United States. Shouts out everyone back home, all the chicks.
United in the United States. Thank you. Let me bring in this lady, Kamala. She lives here about a block away. How do you feel about a Biden presidency?
Oh, excited. We're going to have a leader who's going to unite us. This is the first female, black female president, vice president. That's amazing, because now we have a team who's going to lead all of America, right? Doesn't matter what you look like, what you believe, anything, right? It's not how you dress. We are all Americans, and we are going to be united as one America.
Thank you, Kamala. Nora, the voices of America. Back to you.
Right there at the crossroads of the world in Times Square. Thank you, David Bagno. Want to check in with CBS's Danya Backus. She is in West Hollywood, California tonight. Danya?
Nora, the celebration continues here in West Hollywood, and believe it or not, it's actually died down some throughout the evening. And we have seen hundreds of people in the streets here. They've been dancing in the streets. They've been dancing on cars. They've been waving American flags, Biden flags, California flags, pride flags. Just a true representation of the state of California here. And celebrations like this have been happening throughout the city. I've been able to ask people, what does this mean for you? Why are you here in the street? Why are you dancing and celebrating? And then many people say that they believe that this will be the end of divisiveness in this country. They say that this is a symbol of unity. I was able to ask one mother who was here with her 2 young children. They were dancing in the street. I said, why did you bring them in this large crowd? She said, because this means a better future for them. Nora?
Danya, and that is what sent many people to the polls looking toward the future. Thank you. Let's now go to the nation's capital. CBS's Errol Barnett is at Black Lives Matter Plaza just north of the White House, and huge crowds there, right, Errol?
That's right, Nora. The celebration continues, and I was watching as most people here were glued to their devices, their phones, as they watched the president-elect give that speech. A black man and woman I spoke with from Alabama said that they were inspired and encouraged by what the president-elect had to say, specifically about acknowledging how black Americans had stood up for Joe Biden and had his back, and he says he will have theirs. They will remember that, and it reminds me of something Joe Biden told me and the black and Hispanic journalists I was with when I interviewed him over the summer, that he acknowledges systemic racism exists and pledges to do what he can to undo it. Undoubtedly, his supporters here will remember that pledge. And as you look around, there's a demographic patchwork, people of all ages and colors, and to all of them, the presidency means something different. I saw demonstrators in support of immigrants' rights, veterans' rights, and union supporters here. And there was also a young white woman, a college student, who believes the Biden-Harris administration means progress toward gender equality. One last note about a woman who was just biking through. She said, I don't think this means the end of racism in America, but I do feel in my heart that a Biden administration will usher in a new age of kindness. Last note about Shutdown DC, who organized this on Monday. They're going to switch to pressuring President Trump to concede and transfer power peacefully. Nora?
Errol Barnett, thank you. An era of kindness, no doubt, is a nonpartisan goal, hopefully for all. Let's go over to Major Garrett with how Joe Biden won this election. Major?
America, I know what you're thinking. Seriously? More math and geography? Haven't we advanced to the fireworks, dance, and music part of the program? Stay with me. I promise you there's something interesting. All right. We all remember the 3 states that put Donald Trump over the top in 2016. They were in order: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Let's see what Joe Biden accomplished in those 3 states, not only winning them, but how much did he win them by? Let's start with Wisconsin. About 20,000 votes there. Let's go to Michigan. Very substantial majority there. We look at my notes, about 147,000 votes there. And Pennsylvania, the current amount is about 37,000. I never do math on live television without my note card. That's about 204,000 vote margin in those 3 states. That's important. We've all oriented ourselves to the way these maps look for the red, blue, or light red. This is 2020. Look at Pennsylvania, the one that put Joe Biden over the top. Let's compare it to 2016. Mostly the same, but you see some various shades changing. I want to bring your attention to this county. It's called Chester County. Look at the Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump relationship there. Look at it in 2020. There's a story there. The margin of Joe Biden's victory in one county in Pennsylvania, Chester County, was about 53,000, more than his current statewide majority in Pennsylvania. That doesn't tell the entire story of the state of Pennsylvania, but it tells a fascinating one about the suburbs around Philadelphia, and it is this. Joe Biden got more than 100,000 more votes out of these so-called collar suburban counties around Philadelphia than Hillary Clinton. Here's the more interesting thing about that. Even though those votes went for Joe Biden down ballot, those people who voted for Joe Biden and not Donald Trump voted for Republicans in state races and federal races. So they split their tickets, something we don't see very often in this country. That's the tail of the tape in Pennsylvania. And in suburban America, it was part of the tail of the tape nationally. Nora, back to you. No more math and geography.
No, but that really was fascinating because as people ask, how did Joe Biden win this election. How was he able to bring back voters into the Democratic fold? It was those blue-collar folks, white working-class folks, union households, certainly in Michigan, as well as parts of Pennsylvania as well.
And so far, most of the fraud claims have been totally without merit and made up. And what Major just points out is so wise because it shows voters making a specific choice. In other words, these are voters who are voting for lots of Republicans, just chose not to at the top of the ticket.
It also shows why so many Republicans down ballot across the country did better than expected, because even people who didn't vote for Donald Trump, typical Republicans who said they couldn't take another 4 years of President Trump, still voted for Republican members of Congress. And Democrats thought they were going to pick up seats. Instead, they ended up losing about half a dozen seats.
It was interesting to see the music that they walked out onto. Kamala Harris walked out to Mary J. Blige. Joe Biden walked out to Bruce Springsteen. And in the closing days of the campaign, Bruce Springsteen had done a commercial, narrated a commercial for Joe Biden. And there was a great line in there that says, "This is more than where he's from, it's who he's for," speaking to the blue-collar people that signed on to vote for Joe Biden this time. I think that speaks volumes of how he made that shift and turned that around.
You think Bruce Springsteen may have been the deciding factor?
Well, I think Bruce Springsteen, you can't go wrong with anything Bruce Springsteen.
And
don't get me started on that note.
I know.
I'll start belting out Dancing in the Dark soon. Yeah.
Well, no doubt.
I don't think that hurt. You know, they
No
played
doubt.
that commercial during the Ohio State-Penn State game. The weekend before voting. I don't think that hurt.
Absolutely not. All right, we'll be right back, and we'll have more from CBS News election headquarters right here in Times Square.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more. Experience thought-provoking,
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
COVID has taken the lives of tens of thousands of Americans. Rural areas like this here on Navajo Nation are especially hit hard.
15 to 30% of our Navajo citizens don't have running water.
In any indigenous reservation, there is a shortage of physicians.
Native Americans are amongst the most vulnerable and hardest hit by COVID.
Yeah, the more we lose our elders to COVID-19, the more we lose our language and our way of life.
We need to bring awareness to the attention of Washington, D.C. and United States citizens that there is a need to focus on the first citizens of this country.
In 60 years, we went from about 100,000 factory workers to probably about 7,000.
Off in the distance, you can see some factories that are still humming, but most of them are just kind of abandoned.
The restaurant industry right now is one of the largest and fastest growing industries in America. And yet it continues to be the absolute lowest paying employer in the United States.
Barely anybody's making enough to live.
You're donating plasma to get by.
It's literally a slave wage.
I don't remember growing up like this. My mom didn't have to go to food banks. It's pretty sad.
Even really young kids are feeling what's going on right now. How should parents be talking to them about this whole question of racial justice?
How do we embrace this moment and turn it into real change?
What we really must focus on is moving from protesting to policy.
Join Gail, Anthony, and Tony on CBS This Morning.
CBSN Los Angeles. Get local news, breaking news, anytime, anywhere.
It's easy to find us, and it's free.
Download the CBS News app on your favorite devices. CBSN Los Angeles, streaming 24/7.
You can watch CBSN 24/7.
We've got an amazing story to share with you.
I understand you have some breaking news.
How does it all play out?
It's quite an adventure here at CBSN.
It's been a day.
And what a testament it is to Joe's character that he had the audacity to break one of the most substantial barriers that exists in our country and select a woman as his vice president. But while I may be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last.
And when we look back at this time, one of the great stories of this time will be the rise of women. On the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage, the 19th Amendment, the passage of that, a woman in white speaks before the country to say that she is going to be the first female vice president of the United States, a time when women have been the majority of those heading to the polls every year, when women have more than decades been the majority of people in college and now in professional schools. Finally, someone in the executive office of the White House.
Yeah, it's no coinky-dink that she chose to wear white and wear a white pantsuit in particular. And I think that when Kamala Harris was chosen for the ticket, she did add a certain kind of energy to the campaign. People were excited about Joe Biden, but when he picked Kamala Harris, it kicked it up a notch. I'm still struck by a comment from the Reverend Stephen Bland in Detroit, which I said earlier this afternoon made me wince and made me smile at the same time. He said, because we went from picking cotton to picking presidents. We can't underestimate what the black vote and what the Latino vote meant to this campaign, too, as we give accolades to everyone who has contributed, who voted for the Joe Biden campaign.
Yeah, look at what we heard from Times Square and people that are out celebrating. You know, and this was the most diverse electorate in American history, electorate that is usually 70% white. By our exit polls, it was about 65% white. And so as this country changes, so does the leaders that it elects.
And one of the challenges for any president under a changing country is those people who are made nervous by change. And that's one of the things, in addition to all of the things on the to-do list that Joe Biden must manage. One of the big ones is the partisanship that is kind of the thing you have to solve before you can solve all those other problems. And he's got a big task ahead of him. And when he says we need to see each other again and listen to each other again, that's kind of the top of the to-do list.
I still say, John, he mentioned systemic racism on his opening address to the nation, when so many people don't want to even acknowledge that it exists. They won't even think, they don't even see it as an issue or a problem. Well, he put it out there.
Sure, and ran on it, and spoke about it repeatedly as a candidate.
Also important, not just that he chose a woman, but someone who was of a different generation, because there were a lot of voters who were concerned, frankly, about his age, the fact that he would be the oldest new president in American history. And in particular, a lot of young voters who do make up a very significant chunk of the Democratic electorate who might relate more to someone who was closer to their age. Now, she's still 56, but, you know, a lot younger than Joe Biden. In fact, when she was sworn into the Senate 3.5 years ago, he's the one who swore her in because he was the vice president of the United States at the time.
I'm just, you know, I think about tonight and the history of it, but I also think of what we still have ahead of us here in the next few weeks and months. We have these two critical special elections in Georgia that very well may determine how much ability to govern Biden will have if Democrats are able to win those seats. And it's going to be another test of both the Republican and Democratic parties in a big state. The other thing is this talk he had tonight about cooperation, the idea that he was given a mandate to have Congress, Democrats and Republicans work together. He said, I'll call on Congress, Democrats, Republicans alike to make that choice with me. Be very curious to see whether members of Congress make that choice with him and how difficult it might be. You know, there are only about 30 senators left he served with when he was in that body. And I think it's going to be challenging for him to convince some of those he doesn't know as well to work with them.
There is a big to-do list, certainly, for the next president of the United States. And so as we end this election week with a new president-elect and a newfound understanding of our democracy, a democracy that may not be rapid, but is ultimately resilient. This year, even in the middle of a deadly pandemic, more Americans found a way to vote than ever before. We know that some people did it with a stamp, others did it by standing in line. And the process may have been difficult, and our politics are certainly divided. But we did learn this week that the American people are determined. Our democracy isn't easy, it is earned. And tonight, that process begins. We promise to be back with you as this story unfolds, and we want you to tune in tomorrow for Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan. After a long week, I want to thank my colleagues. Thanks to Gail King, John Dickerson, Nancy Cordes, Ed O'Keefe, Major Garrett, and along with Anthony Salvanto and our Decision Desk. They have done such an incredible job. For all of us at CBS News, I'm Norah O'Donnell, CBS News, New York.
The very soul of America at stake, and the world watching. You ushered in a new day for America.
Let us be the nation that we know we can be. A nation united, a nation strengthened, a nation healed.